Just a heads up, this podcast will focus on issues of domestic violence. If you need help or you know someone who does, please call 1-800-RESPECT.
It's not acceptable what's happening for these women. We have to take a stand. It's bigger than all of us now. We have to come together and bring our voices together.
From Mamma Mia, I'm Mia Friedman, and you're listening to No Filter, candid conversations that count. Each week, at least one woman is killed at the hands of a man who was supposed to love her. Look around. It could be your sister, your best friend, your mother, your workmate, or it could be you. Because the thing about domestic violence is that it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter what colour your skin is, what you do for a job, or where you live. It's all around us and it happens every day. Gold Coast businesswoman Nicolle Edwards was going about her everyday life when she heard of a woman who had arrived into her community with 3 little kids and nothing else, except the clothes on her back. She was fleeing domestic violence and she had nowhere to go. So Nicolle rallied some friends and put out a call on Facebook. She asked for the basics: a toaster, some sheets, food to stock a pantry, kids' clothes, a pram. And in just a couple of days, Nicolle and her friends had set up a home for this woman and her children. Not just shelter, not just emergency accommodation, but an actual home with all the comforts and necessities we all take for granted. One of the most common reasons for women returning to domestic violence situations is for this exact reason. As if it isn't hard enough leaving your life behind, the sanctuary of a home and the little things that make it feel like it's yours can feel impossible to replace. And the more that she learned, the more Nicolle realised she could make a very real difference in the lives of women and their children who were trying to flee from dangerous, often life-threatening situations. So she quit her day job, founded a community-based charity to help victims of domestic violence, and 6 years later, Nicolle Edwards' sole purpose is to help women and children in need through the charity that she founded called RizeUp. When families flee domestic violence situations, they often leave quickly and they leave with nothing. And RizeUp is there to bridge that gap. They provide practical help to families who need to get back up on their feet, whether it's food, blankets, beds or clothes, or even a house. They will find it and they'll help. I'm very proud to be a patron of RizeUp. It's RizeUp with a Z, by the way, if you're looking for it on social media, and I strongly suggest you follow them particularly on Facebook, which is where they put out their calls for the things that they need. And I've been so proud to watch Nicolle and RizeUp help so many families. In just 6 years, they've helped over 574 families start over and make new lives. So how can we help them? Here's Nicolle Edwards. I want you to tell me about the woman on the train and how RizeUp started.
I started doing this work about 6 years ago, and I come from a sales and marketing background, so I'm not a counsellor or a social worker or anything. I suppose I'm a human rights activist, and domestic violence is the biggest human rights violation that I believe that the Western world is facing. So I heard of a lady that had arrived on the Gold Coast, and she had arrived with her baby and her 3 other children. And the story about this lady is she had gone into the hospital seeking some help. So through a friend of a friend, I found out about this lady. And she really had nothing. She had a backpack. And the story about this lady was she had come all the way across Australia, our big, beautiful country, on a train, feeling that was her last resort. So she was fleeing a domestic violence situation. So she effectively took those children for lunch, but what she did was she took them across the country because that's all she felt she could do to get to safety. So she arrived with her baby, this little backpack, and she had nothing. So essentially what we did as bystanders was, what can we all do? We all live in a society that we have so much of everything, right? And so we put a little call out with the magic of social media, and within a few days and by the end of the week we had secured almost everything for her, to the point that we'd almost housed her. So that was the light bulb moment.
What kind of things did you gather?
There was a cot, there was a high chair, there were beds for the children, there were clothes, there was food and kitchen items. My friends were coming out of the woodwork, really going, "Hey, Nick, I've got this, what can we do? Let's get it all together and centralise it." And I just felt that was it. You know, if one lady was going through this, how many more women were going through exactly the same thing? And we don't know what's happening, right? It's all happening underground, and no one talks about domestic violence, and no one wants to talk about it. So that was it.
Tell me about Sally.
Sure. So a few years ago, I was approached by a lady who she had come back to Australia under the Hague Convention.
Now, we've changed details.
Yeah.
Sally's not her real name. The details of her story have been changed to protect, or for legal reasons, and to protect her and her children. But, yeah, tell me, the gist of the story is
so I think,
the same.
You know, we as an organisation, Mia, we don't really connect with the families directly. That I'm really passionate about that. I think A's and B's shouldn't meet. You know, we're actually holding the services at our point of focus.
What do you mean by A's and B's?
So, you know, there's so many vulnerable people in this situation, and I'm a big believer in old-fashioned altruism. Okay, so it's about giving without need for recognition or thanks and any of that. It's really the community rallying and creating an end and you know, responding. I can't think of anything worse than walking down the supermarket aisle, and I'm in the veggies and picking out my bananas, and there's Sally, who I created, you know, we created a home for her, and she sees me, she's met me, and it transports her to that dreadful time in her life where that was really the pointy end of her journey, exiting out of refuge and moving in. So we don't need to do any of that. You know, we are really supporting, we're a service that supports services and creating amazing outcomes. So
Sally was going to come and be with you today.
Yeah, she was,
But because of this story and the situation she's in, she wasn't able to.
Yeah, correct. So I suppose to preface that is, this is an unusual situation where we actually meet the women. And Sally reached out to me. She'd found my phone number and contacted me and came through directly to me, and we got chatting, and she struck me straight away as such an articulate lady. She's very educated. She was a director in communications for a very big organisation, and she started telling me her story, and part of that story was the fact that there had been a DVO in place. She had experienced horrific violence in front of her two little girls. Her family doesn't come from Australia, and she took those children. There was a DVO in place, and essentially she was able to return home to her family and her friend because her husband was Australian. Unfortunately, with the family court and the DV court, they work side by side. So even though there was a DVO in place, unfortunately in this situation, because the two courts don't run together, there was systems and abuse involved, and she was brought back under the Hague. So even though the perpetrator couldn't have any access, he still had that control to bring her back into Australia.
Can you explain what the Hague is?
So the Hague Convention is the United Nations. If someone has taken children, you can bring them back under the Hague Convention. There's the different countries that are a part of that treaty, if you like. By the time she contacted me, she was starting to tell me about, she's borrowed a friend's car, she's running all over the Brisbane region, picking up food baskets. Remember who this lady is? She's very articulate, educated, held down really important jobs. And now she's finding herself with no money, no support, no resources, no access to any help.
So, you know, you said she had a great job, she was living a stable life. Did she have to flee back to this other country to escape this domestic violence situation?
Yeah, correct.
Then she was forced to come back, but with nowhere to live and no job.
Yep. So mum and dad were selling off their belongings in overseas.
Her parents,
to cover her rent. right? So by the time she contacted us, RizeUp, we're that practical wraparound support, okay? So immediately what can we do? We can help with connecting her with a service who perhaps ordinarily wouldn't be in a position to be helping her. So before long, we were able to, link her in with a bit of outreach support to really kind of wrap her little emotional, you can imagine what she was going through. So isolated. We were able to pay electricity bills, and we were doing call-outs for her on our page, because that's how we do it, right?
Can you explain how the call-outs work? Because it's not like you have a big warehouse full of donated furniture and old baby clothes.
No, definitely not. So unfortunately, we're nowhere near that. We're still, just hands on the ground and making it all happen. But essentially what we do is when this lady, she says to me, Nick, my electricity bill's in. It's $300 or whatever it is. We'll then put that out on our page to say, we have this lady that we're supporting that is in the situation from The Hague. Is anybody out there wanting to sponsor a little bit of that? Not the whole lot, but definitely if you can put in 20 or whatever, and before long we've got it, and then we can cover the bill. It's the same with our schools program.
What does the schools program do?
So anytime we have a new family that comes into one of the local refuges, they will contact us and say, little Johnny he's come in and he needs 2 ruggers and he needs 2 polos and a hat, a sun hat, and he needs a backpack and all of this. And we get that well in advance. We then put a call out, Mia, through our social media, and we say, this is what we're needing, 2 of this, Please let us know if you'd like to sponsor it. We then get those donations and we pay it directly into the uniform shop, so mum can actually just go on in there and buy what she needs to buy, and then that little person can just start school and just be normal with everybody else, and not have to be worrying about lack of resources. We know that the children that are coming into refuge, they are exhibiting post-traumatic stress on par with a soldier coming back from active war. These are our little people.
And that lasts decades.
Right?
A lifetime.
A lifetime. Futures are being destroyed, Mia. The physiological long-term impacts of domestic violence and family violence, we know it changes the way the brain works. It's about understanding that being on the receiving end of violence, this right here in front of you, that is what is happening.
You've spoken to so many women over the years that you've been running RizeUp. What are some of the red flags that they talk about that happened in the early stages of their relationship that they perhaps didn't recognise at the time, but looking back?
Yeah, and Mia, the big thing comes around control. There are really significant control issues that start very early. And when we talk about, why doesn't she just leave? Okay, you know how that's a common thing? Why doesn't she just leave? Why does she hang around there? What are we doing, Mia? We're victim blaming, aren't we? We keep taking our eyes off the perpetrator. The issue is, it's like the analogy of the frog. Okay, so you've got a vat of boiling water and you put the frog in, that frog's going to jump right out of that hot water, okay? But if you put the frog in and gently bring it to a boil, that frog will be dead before it even knows. This is what happens in some of these relationships. And what we have to remember, Mia, is this might be the father of their children. He's loving and he plays with the kids and she loves him. She really loves him, right? 5% of the time he could kill her. So you're talking to a woman who's got children with this man and they've had some great times. And so we as a society are sitting there going, well, you need to leave and you shouldn't, all of that. It's so immensely difficult and challenging to separate those two things.
Is emotional abuse often a precursor for physical abuse?
It can be. And don't forget that it can escalate to that. But even, some women have told stories about the fact that there was just a gun in the house was enough. There was never physical violence, but there was a gun in the house. And that he might be cleaning the gun. There were certain things which is intimidation and coercion. So, yes, it's a big myriad of complexity. And, I always think that, we can sit so easily back on our couches from the comfort of our home and ask those questions like, why doesn't she just leave and it's never going to change? And I think we need to always think, well, and also, what's the government doing and what was that magistrate thinking? And why are the police not doing this? So we can sit there with apathy and we can make all of those judgments. But when you're pointing, 3 fingers are coming back at yourself. So what part in that thought process, what part to this bigger, complex issue are we all individually playing?
As a bystander, if you suspect either as a friend or a neighbour or a relative that a woman you know might be in a domestic violence situation, if you see bruises, if you notice a change in behaviour, what should you do?
First of all, step left of judgment. Human nature is we are, especially women, we're really nurturing, right? So we want to get in and help her and change that situation. A woman is the best person to know how to keep herself safe, right? So we're sitting there, well, let's pack your bag and let's get you to a motel. What are we doing? We're actually mimicking the perpetrator's behaviour by controlling her outcome and controlling the decision that she's making. So we don't think about that because we're coming from a really good space. So the best thing that you can do, and especially with an intimate friendship, is to actually say that, because you've got to remember that the perpetrator wants to isolate them from all their friends and family. You just need to sit back and be judgment-free, and I'm here for you. No matter what the outcome or whatever your choices are, I'm here for you. There are amazing services out there that can help you when you're ready. And no matter what, I'm here for you, right? I hear a lot of friends who'll go, I'm telling her that she needs to leave and she keeps talking to me about it and I'm just fed up. I don't want to hear about it again and I'm not going to get involved, right? What's that? That's a great big fat win for the perpetrator, isn't it? So keep that in mind. It's human nature where we'll get exhausted because we're trying to help her and we're trying. But the worst thing you can do is turn your back on her.
And it can be hard to see someone stay in a situation that you know is bad for them.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. Especially if it's your sister and your best friend and it's a person that you love. But, left foot, right foot. Left foot, right foot.
Tell me one good news story, one transformation that you've seen through RizeUp.
There's a lady that we went to go and see her, actually through a media piece. We had to go and see her and we walk into this house and the crew was all there and they were interviewing the lady. And I walked into this little house and there's these little girls running around. And it just, Mia, these elephant tears, I felt them coming down my face. The producer was there and I just said, do you get this? She's been here for 7 months and she'd made it her home here. There was the swing set that we'd put outside. The little girls were running around so happy.
And what had she fled from?
Very significant physical violence. She'd come through a refuge. They're at the pointy end, Mia. They're at the pointy end of homicide for a lot of these ladies heading into refuge. They go into hiding, and then they are exiting out at this really sharp end. And at any one time, there are at least 17 or 18 women, Mia, sitting in motels around the country in different states and cities waiting to go into refuge. Such is the demand to get these women to safety.
This woman had moved into the house with her kids. 7 months
ago, and she was still there, Mia. The enormity of that is huge because you're thinking about, could she have gone back? Did he join her? She had gone on to create this lovely little life and she'd connected with the church and she was settled and she was, involved with the school and there were some really positive, amazing things and it's not alone. We're getting so many
So she'd
stories.
Rebuilt a new life for herself away from...
Because she knew that there was that community support, willing and wanting her to survive and to thrive because the biggest thing is isolation for a lot of these women and not being able to be seen. So they're going out and with nothing. And a lot of the government housing that we're seeing, they are the cement slab on the floor. When you're building a house, that's the floor. There's no window furnishings, nothing. So can you imagine what you're going in there in an area that you're not from?
Traumatised.
With
very little dignity left.
With, you don't even know where the local shopping centre is. You might not even have a car. You don't have any friends in the area. But
and
you're
you've
safe.
got distressed children, possibly.
Got majorly distressed children. We've gone into properties where a lady's been on more than one occasion and there's been like a duvet cover on the floor where she's been there for 5 days with nothing. Tell me, Mia, she's not going back. Yeah? and a little lamp and her kids next. So it's not acceptable what's happening for these women. And I think if more people knew, we're constantly seeing what's happening overseas. I come from Africa, my husband and I, so we know firsthand what's happening in a country filled with crime. There's poverty and, all sorts of things. And I think that's why we're so passionate here, because we are the most amazing country. And if more of our country and our society knew what was happening, we would be more invested in the future of our children that are going on to become our leaders. It's absolutely ravaging our society, the levels of domestic violence. We have to take a stand. It's bigger than all of us now. We have to come together and really bring our voices together. And what can we do? We're doing something which is so basic, this practical assistance, but has such huge impact.
What's the best way that people can support RizeUp?
Like the Facebook page for a kickoff. We absolutely need to be everywhere, Mia. The demand for our service is nationwide.
Where are you currently?
So we go right up to Townsville. We're right to the northern top of New South Wales. Mia, I think it's really important to say that if we wanted to expand and be everywhere, we could do that tomorrow. We have to remember that there are really well-meaning people in our society, okay? But if we don't navigate those unintended consequences of our actions, we could inadvertently put these very vulnerable people in great danger, right? And it's not just from the perpetrators, but it's from the predators that are in our society. So if you are listening and you're motivated, join up with a reputable organisation that has the partnership of the peak services. For us, for Queensland, we're the only service that is partnered with the peak services. And you don't just get that like that. You get that because they're looking at your documents, they are seeing what we're doing, they have trust in how we're handling their very precious cargo when it comes to us. We're not having people donate directly to the homes. It's very tight behind the scenes, Mia. We run on the top cover of RizeUp. It's beautiful and fluffy, and you're seeing the home transformations. It's like the block, on steroids. But behind the scenes, there's a big process of keeping these families safe, and it would be dreadful if we haven't mapped that out and something was to happen to one of my volunteers, for example, or one of the women that we've not done something how we should. So please volunteer at rizeup.com.au. Once we bring them through the onboarding process, we can be everywhere, Mia. We need to be. There are families going out with nothing. I'm getting calls from Canberra, and I need people for us to be able to help these families. So let's get them in, follow the page so you're not missing out. We have regional family programs with, families in regional areas that are experiencing horrific domestic violence, but in such small communities that can be really tough as well. So there are things that we're doing by through sponsorship and creating packs and things like that by purchasing it for them. Yeah, lots and lots of exciting things that are happening. So we're fortunate.
Nicolle, you and everyone at RizeUp, to all the volunteers, we want to say thank you. Thank you for what you're doing for women and children, the most vulnerable people in our community. And we're right behind you and we'll support you in every way that we can. Thanks for listening to this episode of No Filter. If you would like to help Nicolle and RizeUp to help these families, you can. It is so simple. By liking and following RizeUp on Facebook, you can become part of this amazing concept. What happens is that they post what they need for families on Facebook, and the community responds, getting items straight to the families that need them. A few weeks ago, for example, Nicolle posted on Facebook that there was a little girl in a family that RizeUp was helping who wanted to go on a school camp, but her mum, who had just fled from a domestic violence situation and was trying to rebuild her life, just couldn't afford the few $100s that it cost. So people just put their hands up, said, I'm in for $20, I'm in for $100, and really quickly they were able to send that little girl to camp. Sometimes it might just be, we need a kettle or we need some sheets. And you can just pop down to Kmart or wherever it is and grab something and donate it and make a huge difference. If you'd like to go one step further and join their team, you can email volunteer@RizeUp, rizeup.com.au. And if my conversation with Nicolle has made you think, and I really hope it has, please share it with someone. And if you know someone who's in a situation like this, please call 1-800-RESPECT. No Filter is produced by Liza Ratliff. I'm Mia Friedman. Remember, every day is White Ribbon Day. See you on Mamma Mia.